Today is Wednesday, April 27th, 2005. This is Carol Garlow from the Roscommon Area Historical Society. We're at the home of Margorie Legg in Roscommon for the purpose of recording a little bit of her family history. Okay, we're going to do this again because we weren't on. I wasn't getting any red things. Okay, I'm sorry. Will you say it again that this belongs to the Roscommon Area Historical Society?
This belongs to the Historical Society.
In Roscommon.
In Roscommon, what I'm about to give.
Right, and Marge is not pleased about doing this, or she's not real sure she wants to, so we might throw this tape away. So just, can you tell us a little bit about how you happened to come to Roscommon? Well, let's start with, where were you born?
I was born in Pontiac, Michigan in 11/23/12.
A good year. My dad was born that year.
Was he?
Yeah.
And I grew up there, went to school there, had my complete bringing up on Henderson Street, not too far from the local school that I went to, called the Crowfoot School. And then I went into the high school, Pontiac High, and probably wasn't too great. I didn't get into any big things, although I guess I played in a play or two. But
you finished high school?
I didn't finish high school.
Didn't you? A lot of people didn't.
No, and met Lumen at a time when I was working summers out at Loon Lake at some people that I knew, the Hoods, that needed sort of a babysitter and helper around through the summer.
So you were a nanny and a housekeeper all together?
It wasn't housekeeping as much as it was just
childcare,
looking after the younger ones. And it was right on the lake there at I can't remember the name of the place outside of Pontiac. At Loon Lake is what I do remember.
What was Lumen doing there?
And we had just moved out from the Highland Park area where we'd been living while he was in real estate with friends of the family, of the Legg family, down there in the Detroit area. And we had lived there in Highland Park for a while, but
After you were married? You
uh,
and Lumen, you mean?
yes.
Okay, but what was he doing when you first met him and you were out there in the summer?
He was working for this uh, uh, this real estate
Oh, he was already doing that.
people.
Uh-huh.
And actually, we had lived down near the where the airport was. Now I can't remember the name of that place. Inkster, yeah,
Oh.
near Inkster. Our real estate owned man that Lumen worked for, and the people that we got to know them real well. And I was friends of theirs too, but they had this farm. It was an old farm with a big old farmhouse on the property that they thought it would be easier for us if we lived there instead of out there in the Pontiac area.
So that was you mean your mother, dad, and your brothers and sisters?
No,
You and Lumen?
yeah.
Oh, you and Lumen, okay.
And so we moved with our twins and Joni and Pete. We had those youngsters when we moved over there to Inkster into this big farmhouse, and we lived there, I would say, several months, but not into the winter.
Oh,
And it was decided that with the things that were happening with the economy and all, that Lumen would go up where his folks were living and had moved just recently to up in the Roscommon area. His father was acquainted with Roy DeWitt, and in fact, they were all friends of the DeWitt family too.
Oh, so they came up here from that influence.
And the DeWitts were up here getting started too, Roy and Anna. And
So was that like in 36 or so, or?
I don't know what year they came up, or,
No, I mean when you came though.
well,
Because Peter was born in 35.
and he was born down there.
Yeah, and the next one was born in Grayling in 37.
Yeah, and but it was, well, Pete was still a baby that we did.
Did the move?
See, I'm getting mixed up when
That's okay.
I have to juggle around like this, but
And your husband's father's name was Percy, and they had moved up here previously. Sounds
Yeah.
like.
yes, we lived there at the lake for quite a time first, and so that was the area that the twins and Joni and Pete were born down there. And then when we were out there to this farmhouse living, we packed things up to move up north so that we could actually get started in a more permanent spot.
Uh-huh.
And we had everything all packed, but Lumen decided that it was best that he take the youngsters and me up so that we could get located, and then he would go back down after all the things that were stored in the farmhouse there to take up. But a bad event happened, and they went back down with the truck to get all
Your belongings.
belongings, and it had been robbed. And,
Marge, no kidding.
and so consequently, there were many things that we didn't have to get started with when we got up here.
Isn't
But
that something? That
but-
was a blow to you.
we rented the little house of John Lockreese that was in back of where the Bank One is, on that street right across from Dwayne McWilliams.
Oh, okay.
But the little house isn't there
Yeah.
anymore,
That would have been on Brook Street?
I guess.
Yeah.
But we got in there, and it was little, all
I
right.
bet it was.
So we had bunk beds for a couple, and made do because Percy and Urbilla were having Roy put up a log house for them on our property, on the old family property that was out on M18. At that time, that's what it was called. And so they, we put the place in as much order as we could, and I got acquainted with many people in the Congregational Church, because that's where I started going, though I had been a Methodist before, and got into a bridge club with Helen Richardson, who was the one I went to for my hair.
Oh, okay. Uh-huh.
Cuts and whatever, and
Richardson.
and of course got acquainted with Winnie Matheson across from
She was just down the
where
street
we
from you.
lived.
Yeah.
and eventually got into what we called the Bridge and Chatter Club.
Well, that was probably correctly named. Bridge and Chatter.
And
Was that 2 tables or 3? Or more?
I don't remember, and I had them out to our place when we finally got located out on M18, because the old the house that Percy and Urbilla had been in since they had moved to Roscommon was originally the big barn, but they had it revamped, and it was made into a very livable house, and they wanted this log house, and they built it on the property right next to
Where you?
the house
Yeah.
that we went into, and which was satisfactory, however, a bit close for,
For in-laws, huh?
and
So what kind of work did Percy do when he came up here then, or was
Well,
already doing when
no,
you
he
came?
no, he got into I don't know whether you'd call it logging or
Lumber business.
lumbering or what, but actually, it wasn't long before Carson and Thelma moved up too, because this was at a time that kind of hit everybody, and so they made new jobs for themselves, and Lumen struck out with the trucking part of it, and
Oh.
got trucks and hauled the logs and the things that had to go to the paper mills over on the west side of Michigan, and I can't remember the name of the area right now, but I probably will later.
But he made quite a trip then, with these wood.
Yeah, and
Then did he have
And the-
people working for him, your husband?
I don't remember all this.
Yeah. You were busy raising children.
At that particular time, maybe right to start with, why whatever Percy was doing, and Lumen was a part of it, and Carson started in with a sawmill to take care of some of the wood too, but there were just different phases there. But ours was, like I say, more the trucking part of it, and making the acquaintance of the people that operated the paper mills, and of course the DNR was a part of all of it too, because they opened up the areas for cutting, and Lumen started getting the business so that he had cutters and into the various areas that cooperated with what the DNR
Where he could
set
get
up
permits from the
and
state
wanted.
to cut.
And so it was a cooperative
Much like they're
type
doing
of
today.
thing. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
definitely.
Well, that's good.
But and then of course Percy had a daughter that married Dick Price, that he was in the DNR too. So there was, it gradually got to a point of where there was an understanding of, from all the different angles that things functioned. And
Now, which sister married a Price?
Clarice,
Oh, Clarice. Okay.
but she died of cancer later on, and
It says
and
1973.
yeah,
She died. That's quite a while ago.
and there's places in back that that tell more. I don't know why I wrote in so much on the front page,
That's okay.
but like my family is right in the next page.
Yeah, I see
Here,
your children.
yeah.
listed.
But anyway, that
So
whole thing needs.
was that Richard Price from Roscommon?
Oh, yes, the Andy
That
Price
was Andy Price's son?
son.
Oh,
uh-huh,
really?
Yeah.
Did they
And,
live here very long?
no, they lived over at Lake City because he was connected with the DNR
Oh,
at,
okay.
in a
Already.
different area.
Oh, I see.
And, but, of course, Andy and there's just so many that were back then. One connection with another,
Yeah.
just
Um, where was Percy's wife from?
Pontiac.
Oh, was she?
Well, no, I'll take that back. Kingston, Michigan,
Oh, okay.
which I think in that area.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not really sure either of
Of her.
but there was a lot of relatives in the Kingston area. I know for one or the other of them.
Yeah, well, it says here that Percy was born in Kingston,
Oh,
and Urbella was born in South Branch Township, so she was from up
oh,
here,
she was.
Crawford County.
Yeah, that's right. Because
1890.
some of the Shertill
It
relatives.
doesn't tell what her maiden name was.
Oh gosh.
Don't know. It doesn't say, so it doesn't matter. I just kind of.
Oh.
So she was from up here originally.
Yeah, that's right. Because come to think of it, there were relatives up here over on that road just perpendicular to the one that we lived on, that had a farm over in there. And
Well, there was Chase Bridge, and there was.
no, this is
farther
down.
out?
This is, yeah, beyond where we lived a little, and over there.
Fluter. There's Fluter, and I don't know all that area. either.
Floyder.
Floyder. Is that how you pronounce it? Floater.
That doesn't sound right, but
Well, it's probably not right then, because there's another road there that goes up to Pioneer. Too, is that Willows or something like that?
yeah,
Out
Willows.
that way.
Willows, I think
Is
it
that
is.
the one? And there's
Yeah.
farms along there.
Uh-huh. And then also, she had some other relatives, and Mary Jane Osling's mother, what was her name?
Oh, I should know. She just passed away a couple of years ago.
Really?
Yeah.
She,
Mary Jane's mother just passed away maybe 3 years ago. She lived right on 5th Street. Oh, I know her name too. I'm sorry, I can't think of it.
gosh, I knew her real well when she lived there on 5th.
She still lived there when she died.
No, Mary Jane had.
No, not Mary Jane, but her mother did. That was her one. Those little houses there was her house, and it was sold after she died. Well, I can't think of her name either. I'll think of it and we'll write it in later.
Because she was related to
To your
the
mother-in-law?
to the people I'm thinking of on that road.
Uh-huh.
Williams, the Williams family.
We're related to your mother-in-law?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. And well, it doesn't
Doesn't matter.
matter that much, but it just seemed like after we got up here, we learned that there were so many related to one another.
No. Oh, yes, it's still that way today. Which makes it kind of fun and interesting.
Yeah, that's right.
Everyone has a lot of cousins and,
Uh-huh.
you know, all the Richardson family, big families. Well, you had a big family too, so let's go on about all your children.
Well-
We're down to
Louis.
Peter, so Louis comes next.
And Louis was born up here in Grayling, and of course we had some in school shortly after we had gotten into, when we were living in town. I remember that the twins got started over at the school,
Sure.
and
So you must have come like in 35 or so.
yeah, it was close, but it just seemed like Pete was,
36. How old was Pete when you came?
well, that's what I don't remember, but
Oh.
it,
He was a baby though.
I think he was walking, though,
Oh, okay. So I bet you came in 36.
but, and I don't know what
So
to-
you
to go
went
on
to the
to.
hospital to have Lewis?
Mm-hmm. And our life out there at the Leggville, as we called it,
Oh,
because see, Carson had a place over across the garden, a
oh.
little place that they had built, somebody had built, and then of course with the big old farmhouse that was utilized as the years went by for that Percy hired a cook, Baker, a man by the name of Baker was the cook, and opened up this old farmhouse and made a big dining room out of one portion
really?
of it, and so the workmen who had a bunkhouse that they built in back of that farmhouse, and this was over just across the driveway from where we were living.
Huh.
But anyway, they had hired some of the wood people, the cutters. This was in the very early stages of their getting together with all this pulpwood business. But I remember that
Well, so was the baker there just to cook for the hired hands, or?
yeah, just
Oh,
for the
okay.
hired hands, but eventually he was such a good cook that every once in a while, why, some of the others would go over to eat too. But I mean, and then eventually they did away with having the cutters there on the premises, and they had their own diggings up in the woods, wherever it was that they were cutting. And so that didn't last very long like that, but the
By that time, were you in the log house that Percy?
or no, we were
No, you were still in.
we were they were in their log home.
Oh, they were in the log the whole time.
Yeah, and we had moved, you see, from town out
Out to
to the barn home,
Okay.
and we had a lot of revamping done on it too, through the years we'd built on.
Is it still there?
Oh yeah,
it?
that was what we sold finally, but we built on another bedroom upstairs over the porch, and built a big recreation room and laundry room in back, across the back end of the house. So we had enlarged the place a great deal and made it more to our
For your needs.
desires.
Sure.
And of course, it was still pretty much a family affair, although Percy did finally deed over that portion. He had it all reappraised and deeded over each portion for Carson and for our place. And then there was that bit in the middle there that where the cookhouse was, that was along the highway there too. So, and we still had the baker there because he was just kind of wrapped up in the place, I guess.
And his name was Baker. Isn't that something?
And I know the kids would come home from school. Now this was, a few years later, all right enough, but they'd come home from school and they always went over to see if Harry, his first name was Harry, and see if Harry had made donuts that day.
Oh, sure.
And
I bet he enjoyed your children.
yeah, and of course the kids all had ponies and horses of their own. And
really?
my daughter Joan had a nice, really nice horse, and this is when she was up in teens, but she would ride the horse back over to the river where the Hotzel family lived, which my daughter married into later years when they just came up for summer. They had a place on the river, and they came up from Birmingham for the summers. And but anyway, they all had horses and rode a lot. And
were there stables there, or were they just out in the field?
oh no, we had barns. There was two big barns.
Wow.
and
So with all this lumber, they did a lot of building.
I guess. And of course there was sawing going on too there, but because the Carson had that part of it,
The
pretty
sawmill
much
part?
the sawmill. And Percy, being a butcher as he was, and Roy DeWitt, he was a butcher too when they were in Pontiac, both of them. And but Percy did a lot of butchering, and we had there was chickens and
Did
all
he raise
kinds
cattle
of
out there
things.
too?
Not particularly the cattle, but he had a chicken coop, and there was always eggs and chickens to be
Like
had.
how many acres do you think they had there?
What?
How many acres did he have
Oh
there?
gosh, I don't know. It went back long
Quite a
ways.
ways.
Yeah, I would say probably to the river, but and up the other way to that road too that I was talking about.
Okay.
He owned property in Percy did up in there too, but and Lumen kind of got into the act, and Lumen bought property too over in across the line. See, we were right on the dividing line for Crawford County, and Lumen bought over in where the Pioneer Cemetery, that road that goes out there. He bought all along that road and built some houses, had some houses built. He didn't do it himself, but he had the places built. And
Just to sell?
yeah, and but that was along and through the years there, and
So that was probably in the 40s. he didn't have to go to World War II. He was too old, right?
Yeah, and Bob was uh, draft, drafted, I guess you'd
Now, who
call it.
was Bob?
My son,
Oh, your
Robert.
son was drafted. Oh, for what? For
Uh,
Korean War?
no, no, no. Um,
He was
uh,
too young for World War II.
he was. I know that he served in the
Military.
military in the what is it besides the army? There's a
National Guard.
no, that was um,
Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines.
no Marines.
Oh, he was in the Marines.
Yeah, he was in the Marines, and he was out in California for his training and in Camp Lejeune for some of the training.
Oh.
And but the war ended. I think he didn't have to serve. I mean, he didn't have to go overseas or anything. So I don't know just how that worked out that way, but he,
But he died very young.
well,
It says, is that, do I have the right one here?
Robert Legg,
Born in 1930. He was your.
yeah, one of
He
the
was one of the
twins.
twins. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And he died in 1956.
Hmm.
So he was only 26 years old.
And but he
But he had been in the Marines.
hmm And oh, and the reason he was out of the Marines, come to think of it, though, was they were in some kind of sports too, football and different things there in Camp Lejeune, and he broke a leg or something that so he was
They discharged him, huh?
discharged.
Probably medical
Yeah.
discharge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so he wasn't in the.
And he just has the one daughter?
Yeah, he just had the one daughter, and she lives out east now. In fact, they were from Roscommon too, but they had a restaurant there in Roscommon for a long time. But then, after Bob's accident with his work in the wintertime, see, his father died in '55, and the boys had been helping with the pulpwood and the driving and
Sure.
these kind of things, or at least Bob had. He was the older one. And when they finished the getting things kind of organized, I wanted to tell you first, though, I guess, about this Harry Baker that
Oh, yeah.
was over
let's
at
hear
the
about Harry.
was over at the cookhouse after they got to the point of not having men work and live out there. It eventually was going to just dissolve so that he wouldn't be there anymore, Harry. But the churches around, some of them, they thought it would be a great idea to have the cookhouse a place to go for coffee or something, you know,
Oh.
and pancakes and all the stuff that Harry did so well. And our driveways were just block solid with cars on Sundays and at different times. So he had a job there.
Did the churches pay him to cook, you mean? Kinda?
No, I don't think so. I think
No, they just would sponsor.
I think we were still, or he was still
On your payroll.
under the Legg. I don't know how that worked. I didn't pay that much attention to that.
Uh-huh.
But I know our families ate over there then a lot
Oh, sure.
at different times, you know,
Sure.
because and and utilized the big dining room, and we'd all get together and have a meal there, you know. And but anyway, that was just kind of part of our family history, and everybody that used to go there, they talked about it all the time. And I remember different ones asking me, even in not too far back many years, about whatever happened to Harry Baker. How come he?
They would have liked to have gone to eat there again, huh?
Yeah, and but that was given up then. But
Did he stay in the area?
I don't remember what happened
Yeah.
at
Well,
all.
Was he older than you?
No, he was probably
Your age group?
no, a little older.
Yeah, a little older. Uh-huh. Oh, for heaven's sakes.
My husband was 4 years older than I, and I would say he was a little older even than Lumen.
Uh-huh.
But anyway,
Okay, well, we're back to, we have, Lewis was born in Grayling, 37. Then we should just do your next 4 children. Because Lewis was number 5. So tell us about Barbara. If you want to. You don't have to.
well, as the older ones, of course, begin to get acquainted with people from other areas, which they did, but it was all through Roscommon too. The twins, of course, they were acquainted with the Hotzel family, and Bob, one of the twins, he was acquainted with Elsie Brunt's son.
Oh.
And one of the DeWitt boys, young Bob DeWitt, I think, was one that was acquainted in there too, and they kind of palled around. But Elsie Brunt was working for Jim Rutledge. No, Jim was the probate judge at that time, and Elsie was a juvenile officer, or wasn't called a juvenile officer then, it was something else, but for youngsters that needed more care or
Guidance.
and guidance, you know, and then of course the schools became involved too with delinquency problems and various things, which the probate court handled at that time. Social services hadn't as yet taken over a lot of those things, I guess. But anyway, Elsie, this was years later though, gosh. It was after, I don't know. That's what I need to
Anyway, okay, you want to look at something?
look in here to see what.
Elsie wrote that nice story of her, I think it's her grandfather, that sailor in the pulpit. Did you ever read that? Oh, you'd enjoy it. I'll see that you get it.
I was looking what year they got me into the September 61
Oh, okay.
is when got me into the county juvenile work in probate court.
Did you work in the courthouse then?
For Jim Rutledge.
That was
or
after you raised
with-
your children.
Well, they weren't all out.
They were still.
I still had
Yeah.
the younger ones in school.
Yeah, the youngest one was born in 49. Okay.
And but anyway,
Oh, how nice. Look at that.
all the different things that,
What'd you do at Ferris?
well, it's just that I
that you
got a
attended.
certificate there, but I did a lot of study, of course, after Lumen died and got into different things.
When you worked at the courthouse, what was your job?
Juvenile office.
As rambly as you want.
But and then when I got ready to retire, of course, in 14 years after, I had all kinds of accolades.
They all thought you were wonderful, and that was you were. So that was good.
I seemed to be able to enjoy the things that everybody else was with parties and one thing and
Why, sure.
another. But
Well, I'm going to go back just a little bit. When you first moved out to Leggville, we'll call it, was there electricity out there?
oh, yeah.
Was there?
Well, come to think of it, we had Delco systems,
Oh,
our own.
you generated your own electricity.
Generators.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I know Percy. He would want you to be careful and not use too much of this or too much of that. There was always something, it seemed, that he was yelling about.
He was a pretty close watcher, huh?
Yeah. But
Did you have a automatic washing machine?
yes, I did.
Did you?
Sure.
Great.
That's what I don't really remember, that we had that generator business too long before
The electricity
was
came.
there. Yeah.
Did you start out with kerosene lamps?
No.
No, you had electric lights right
Only
away?
only when the lights went out,
Yeah,
and we had the lamps
yeah.
handy.
Uh-huh.
But no, and
So when you moved out there, how did your children get to school?
we took them.
Oh, you took them in. Did you have cars already?
Oh
You
yeah,
had your own cars?
yeah. We had a car, and
So you came to town twice, you brought them in, then you came back to pick them
I
up?
didn't do it. But they were taken in. There were enough people,
Out in the area, sure.
But it wasn't long before there were some buses too. They were bused. I don't think that we had to do too much running back and forth. Winter times were the worst. I can remember one winter being with the roads so bad and so much snow and everything that they hooked up horses to use sleigh
Really?
to go in.
To come to town, huh?
Yeah. And then there was one winter they snowshoed into town.
No kidding. Wow.
It
So
was
when
about,
you
it was
first-
about 3.5 miles out,
Yeah.
we figured,
Yeah.
from town.
When you first came up here, what did you think of the little town? I mean, were you happy to come here, or were you thinking, oh, I'm in outer Mongolia, or?
I don't remember what
No.
I
You had
really
4 little
felt.
children, and you didn't.
I was just happy with our family
Sure,
and our
sure.
the things that had to be done were more important than fretting about what
About
the
where you
little
were.
town
Right,
was.
yeah. Well, and if you found a church home right away, and
Yeah,
you said you became acquainted
yeah,
quickly and had good friends.
yeah, and I don't know what all the different ones that that we played cards together and jabbered over things and whatnot. I don't think that any of us were too far different,
Uh-huh. True. It still
really.
is a homogeneous area.
And we all pitched in and did. In fact, I back then I did more for neighbors than anything. Uh, I can, and I guess that's probably what got me my job there at the courthouse,
Sure.
because um, people that lived across the road, people that lived down the road from us, and then of course some of the people that had worked for us that lived down and back in a little ways on another road. Um, they all, and see, this was all with the slump that
Everyone was struggling.
was in,
Sure.
and you just felt for everybody, it seemed. And I guess we must have not had that struggle or something, because I was I was offering my help to so many different ones around.
Did you take extra children in and stuff? Is that what you mean?
No, no. Um, of course, I was driving too, so different times there'd be maybe things I could bring them, from town or whatever. But I, when I was working there at the court, though, some of these families, and that didn't live too close either, they lived down the road quite a ways. They were really down and outers, and come to my attention about some of the things. So in just even meeting their the needs that had to be for their
Just basic needs. Huh?
yeah, for their good, I'd make kettles of soup or different things and take to them, and the people across the road, they had children, and Kathy, my youngest daughter, by that time, of course this was much later too, by that time
Kathy's your baby.
yeah, she was giving piano lessons. My youngsters all took piano, one
Did
after
they?
the other,
Did they? Mm-hmm.
from Mary Lockery, yeah,
Great.
and Kathy was the one that was when she went down to Central. She was majoring in music to begin with, but she changed her major and got back into social work finally.
Just like Mom, huh?
Yeah, yeah, but and then
Of
she,
your 9 children, how many went to college?
well, there was 3 of them that got started. Kathy's the only one that really went the gamut. She even did her master's
Oh, really?
in social work, and
Did all your children graduate from Roscommon High School?
all but Pete, and of course he was a quadriplegic and had a big struggle, but I've met so many different ones since that said, oh, I went to school with Pete, and we just got him up and down those stairs there at the school. It was
Sure.
stairs for taking his wheelchair, and but he wasn't in school a lot. There were so many times that he was being in treatment, or he lived at Mary Free Bed down in Grand Rapids for
Oh, did he?
a while for rehabilitation, but it never did get any better there. And but it seems like there's just been,
How old was he when he died, Marge?
I think it's here.
Oh, right here, 81. He was
Yeah.
46.
So he lived a good
He
life,
did, yeah.
and he productive life too, because he, in our big recreation room, he had an office set up that after his father died in '55, he just took over with the business,
Oh,
and
cool.
and even drove. He had a car with hand controls, and so he drove and to go to check on things, you know, at the woods, how, because Lumen had gotten our part of the business, so that it was a matter of seeing that Cutters did certain things and took care of certain parts of the setup that where they had to keep the roads in and out, you know, and
So how long
shape.
did Peter keep that business going?
I don't know.
Quite a while, though, after your husband died.
Yeah, I would say until shortly before he was before 81.
Really? Well, good for him.
Yeah, and in fact, he sold our part of sold this business that we had out, and so after Pete passed away, and it was during certain breakdown, his skin was so tender that he got terrible pressure sores, and he was deteriorating to a certain amount, so that he didn't get out as much as he had been. And the doctor, he did all of his arranging himself. He made contact with doctors over in Minnesota.
Minneapolis.
Yeah, and doctors that would take care of his surgeries, which needed to be done with the breakdown of his skin like it was, and but without the use of blood, because see, he was witness.
Oh, so he didn't take the
Yeah,
blood.
yeah. And the reason he was a witness, and I sure give them a lot of credit, they were right there for Pete all the time.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, and took him to different meetings downstate, to the big place where they met once a year or twice a year or whatever. Took care of him, and saw to it that he went to the meetings, and we'd have meetings at our house even. I didn't think too much of it at the time, though I knew they were doing him a service.
Sure.
And so the
It was a
witness,
wonderful support group for him.
yeah, and so a lot of the witnesses are my staunch friends
Why,
too.
sure. Well, they should be.
Yeah, and he, you know, Gina and Jack Leline
Yeah.
Gina was Catholic, you know, to
Yeah,
begin with.
I know she was.
And her mother wasn't too happy when she knew that they
Yes, but those
turned.
people helped her when she was, remember
Oh
how
yeah.
ill she was?
Oh yeah, she changed her
Oh.
tune too, and so did I.
Mhm.
But it was just it was a miracle for Pete, of
Sure it
course.
was. Sure.
And so when he got into the witnesses, why it was something that we had some of their meetings at our house, and we had that big recreation room, and that's the room they used, you
It
know.
sure was. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
Truly it was.
And
And that he could keep the business going, that was wonderful
yeah,
too.
yeah.
Really.
And when he sold it, you see, that was a big plus for me, because then I didn't have any more to have to take care of,
Sure.
and it was a situation that had some
A lot of merit for everybody.
money for
Sure. Well, tell me, when did
the,
you start being such a wonderful artist?
oh,
Did you draw as a young person also?
yes.
Did you?
Can I?
You want me to stop it?
Yeah.
Okay, we are now looking at some beautiful pencil drawings. And you were just a young bride when you did this. Oh, wow.
And this was of one of Luhmann's fraternity brothers.
No kidding.
And this was of a cousin. Now these are damaged stuff that
Yes,
they
but,
haven't.
you know, you should get these framed.
Oh,
These are beautiful. 1929, and you were married in 1930?
yeah.
No, it says Legg already.
Oh, does
Where
it?
were you married?
But I think I did it in 29.
Yeah, you probably, and then probably signed it later.
Uh-huh.
Beautiful. Now that is done with just a brown pencil?
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, who is this? Oh, this is a cousin.
A cousin of mine, Charlotte. She
Charlotte.
died here a year or
Oh.
so ago. She was
Oh.
just my age.
Look at that. These are beautiful.
And this was my daughter Betty, one of the twins. And and you can see this, I've done a lot of monkey, and then also the kids got into them sometimes
Why,
too.
sure.
And damaged them.
This is beautiful. Look at her eyes.
And both of these are the twins.
The twins, sure. Well, you had a God-given talent to be able to.
George Raft, you remember him? In 1929.
No, that's before my time.
Well, you see, I was going with Luhmann then. Though.
Oh, okay.
So
I didn't hear much about about how you fell in love with him. You kind of skipped over that, but that's okay. Oh, these are just beautiful.
well, and these are just some little
oh my
things
gosh.
out
Well,
of.
I can't. These faces have so much.
And you know, why didn't I continue doing
Oh, I don't know. They're
portraits or
just
something?
beautiful.
But I didn't. I just decided
Was this your mother?
no.
It says mom.
Well, I think
Is it you?
I think it means
It's
that I
you.
did it.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Oh
And-
my goodness.
There's no rhyme nor reason, but I did these hit and miss, you know.
But did you take art in school?
They didn't offer much.
No, probably not. But did your mother must have encouraged you?
And my mother was good at drawing, too.
Was she?
Uh-huh.
We kind of missed about how many brothers and sisters did you have?
I had two sisters.
The three of you, huh? Where are you were you the oldest?
Yeah, I'm the oldest.
Or you are the oldest?
Look at these crazy things.
Oh, boy, but all the expressions, they're just wonderful.
And then Boy Scout deal.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Those are beautiful.
Yeah. I'm just kind of,
Did you not do paintings to sell then after you were retired?
no, I didn't do much of any painting.
Well, you were in the art shows and it was
Oh.
wonderful.
Well, oh, here's
here's some more.
Some more of those.
Let's see. Oh my gosh.
And that was one of the,
You just,
Things
you,
that I
you looked
did.
at that and
Yeah.
painted it.
yeah.
Oh, these faces are just amazing. Look at that.
I
Oh,
loved
the baby.
doing it at the time. I can remember that.
Sure.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was Louis, my
Oh, that's
son.
sweet.
And this was a little cousin of Louis, Maureen O'Hara, or Maureen
Sullivan.
Sullivan, yeah.
Wow. Well, these are priceless. These are wonderful.
I want to show them sometime to the,
To your pen and palette.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
I'll put
these, you should look through them. Some of them are real
Okay.
great ones that were put on exhibits out there. And
So we're
just-
talking now about Marge's daughter, Joan, who lives in California and who also has artistic ability. And we just looked at some of the artwork that she has done, and it's wonderful. So you passed it down from your mother to Joni, huh?
Yeah. You can just lay it there in the middle.
So how long have you been active in the pen and palette?
From its beginning.
Which was, do you know how long?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. We started out there at the high school.
Oh, did you?
Mm-hmm. Um,
Was it after you retired?
I don't think so. No.
The new high school?
Yeah, it was a new high school.
'Cause that was opened in 73.
Who had the hardware store?
Rutledge's.
Sue and her husband,
Glover's.
Glover's.
Mhm.
Sue Glover. Uh,
Her parents had it before that,
yeah, but it was Sue that
Stewart's.
would be able to maybe say, not that she was out there, but she knew about all meeting together. In fact,
Well,
I think
it's been
she
a
was
nice, productive group.
I think she was one of our teachers or whatever
Mm-hmm.
at one time.
Okay, well, I'm going to see if there's any more questions. What do you remember when you came to Roscommon? You said you played a lot of bridge. And were the trains still coming with passengers when you moved here?
I don't
Not that you remember
that.
that, because you were out
See,
of town.
we were out of town.
Yeah.
I didn't get in on a lot of things that were.
Here, let me take that.
Thank you.
Well, but you were busy raising all these children,
Well,
I would say.
and cooking and
Sure.
Lumen did a lot of running back and forth with the kids too, and buying groceries and all that stuff too. So there was just a lot of living.
That's good. It was good, clean living.
Yeah.
Well, that is great. Well, we appreciate you sharing all that with us. See, that's a good bit of little...
And of course, did we talk about the fact that I don't remember what church it was, but it was one, I think, that was out there near the overpass going toward Higgins Lake, a little church
The little
down
Lutheran, the little Swedish
Lutheran church.
Messiah Lutheran.
I think it was that one that that started this going out to the cookhouse for
Oh, yes. They talk about that they used to have Swedish dinners, but I don't know where they had them.
No, that wouldn't have been out at our place. No, but, and maybe it wasn't even that church that started this, going to out there for the after church.
So it was a big breakfast?
Yeah,
Sounds good to me.
yeah. And they were big too. And in fact, we had so many people coming that besides the big dining room with a huge table, they had another room in the place fixed up with tables and chairs too, because there was too much of an overflow.
I bet he loved it. I bet
Yeah.
Mr. Baker loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was neat.
And he cooked on an old cook stove, you know.
Mm-hmm. Gee, isn't that something?
Yeah, things weren't exactly. I even had a cook stove over at our place for a while, but then, gosh, we changed things. We got more modern.
Sure,
And
sure. What do you remember about the war years? World War II.
The only thing that I remembered, of course, is my son Bob having to be taken, and we didn't like that too well because he was up at an age where, you know, where he could have been used at home.
But the war was kind of over with by then, by the time he went, because he was born in 50. No, he was born in 30, so he was
Yeah.
only 15 when the war ended. So he must have been right at the end of it, or right after it ended. Yeah.
Oh, but anyway, see, it was just, we weren't put to real bad troubles, but
Did you have the rationings
They
books
were-
and all that?
I don't remember that.
Don't you?
I know gas was
You were careful.
careful there. And
Did you grow
I
out there?
did.
Did you grow vegetables and do a lot of
yeah,
canning?
and I did do a lot of canning.
Did you?
Oh yeah, Lumen would be going with a because there was a time there where he had revamped a vehicle that he had so that he could pick up more things, and when he'd go downstate or go any place where there were those roadside
Vegetable stand?
vegetable places, he'd pick up bushels of one thing and another, you know, to bring back. And of course he distributed a lot of stuff too for people like that, but that needed things taken. But it just seemed like you adjusted to so many different things that it wasn't always in the same vein that
Did you often get back to your home area to visit your family and your mother and dad?
yeah, we did go downstate quite a bit. And brought them up here, and they, in fact, in later years, my mother was with us a lot because she was at a point where she couldn't do so well for herself, and she lived with my sister downstate toward the end. But then my sister's husband had a bad stroke, and with all his care, I took Mother up here with us for a time, and then that got to be too much because we had bedrooms upstairs, and it was getting real difficult because I had Pete yet to, you know, to handle and take care of him. So I didn't.
What was your mother's name?
Ada. Hunger.
Ada.
Well, Hunger was her maiden name. Powrie was the last name.
Yeah, there's Powrie. That's your maiden
And
name.
then we got acquainted with some more Powries right here in Roscommon.
Really?
Yeah, Sylvina and Stuart Powrie. And this was at an odd time, too, that I happened to go into the donut hole and I heard somebody mention Stuart Powrie. I said, boy, that sounds like our clan. And because we did have Powries in Saginaw area, but I had never met them or anything, but these Stuart Powries were from down in the Ann Arbor area more, I think. But anyway, I got to know them quick after I heard the name.
Sure.
And we've had many reunions, nice reunions together with both sides of these families, you know, and it's been real nice.
Sure. Why, sure. Well, we appreciate your time today. Is there anything else you can think of that we should record for posterity and history?
The only thing that I look back on and think of is the change, that they're minor changes, but still changes in Roscommon. I can remember where Lockery's grocery store used to be, and
Yeah.
and the various things around that, you know, just gradually changed, that's all. And of course the drugstore that was Andy's is
Yeah.
now a beer garden.
That's true. The first one is
Yeah.
now the Tin Fish, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. The only thing for sure is that everything keeps changing.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm gonna just go down is it okay if I just list your children and make sure we haven't left anyone out?
Okay.
There were the twins, Robert and Elizabeth, and then Joan, and then Peter, Louis, Barbara, Carol, Cynthia, and Kathleen.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a nice family.
And the sad thing right now is that Barbara is going through some real bad stuff.
Oh, that's too bad.
This multiple myeloma.
Oh, yeah, that's not good. Where does she live?
She and her family live in Kalispell, Montana.
Oh, that's a long ways from here.
Yeah, but, and of course I've got the two daughters yet in California, where I had three when Carol passed away. And
So do you have any children here?
I have two daughters here in Michigan. One in Marshall, Michigan, is the
Oh.
Betty, the twin,
Oh, okay, Elizabeth.
and Kathy, up my youngest, up in Sutton's Bay,
Oh,
and of course she's connected with the Grand Traverse school system.
oh, is she?
Yeah.
And is Joan the only one that is as artistic as you?
No, Betty is.
Oh, Betty is too. Huh?
Yeah, and in fact, she's taken some of my materials and she's going to start up doing something again. She did do a watercolor painting of children,
Oh.
and she did really nice work, but and she's entered into the work field again with along with her daughter and her husband that have taken over the management business of their of my granddaughter's husband's family, which is Turkeyville down in Marshall, Michigan.
Oh, yeah, that's a big setup.
Yeah, and
Wow.
so of course they've been at it for years and years,
Yeah.
you know, and it's grown, and there's just an awful lot going on there, and of course they have the dinner theater there too now, and so
So that keeps Betty
Betty
busy.
Betty is on the what do you call it, where they're phoning all the time. They're glued to the phone
Oh, okay.
because it's arranging buses and all the
All the guests that they have.
clientele. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Well, Marge, I think you did fine. Do you feel okay about it? It wasn't so bad, was it?
Sounds terrible, I think.
Oh, no. You did just fine, and we thank you very much. And we'll close, okay? Today is June 9th, 2005. This is Carol Garlow. We're going to add a little bit to this tape from Marge, okay? Here you go, Marge.
Well, we lived in Roscommon for a short time in John Lockery's small house in back of Bank One on Brook Street, long since having been tore down. We moved out on M18, 3 miles from town. Percy Legg had Roy DeWitt build them a new log house on the lot next to the place that they had remodeled for living from the large barn that was on the property. He owned or bought from family members this property with extensive acreage. The original farmhouse was still there, which was used as the cookhouse for hired woods help that they had a cook called Harry Baker. A bunkhouse was added to that part of the property too, a distance from our homes, and we made more changes. We made more changes in the barn home that we were going to live in that after we left town. Lumen's brother, Carson, and Thelma, his wife, had a small half-log home built on some property across the garden from us on the other side of the cookhouse. When they came up from Pontiac to join the Leggville clan, as time went on and our family grew, we added a master bedroom, also a recreation room downstairs with a second bathroom, an area off the recreation room of closets and bunk beds. A hospital bed was later added for Peter when he'd had his accident, the fall from the silo, when playing hide and seek with his much doctoring and treatment for the remaining quadriplegic condition. We were glad to have the extra space to see that somebody can reword this so much better. I could even two at one time. I don't know what to do.
It's okay, just keep reading it.
I don't even read it good. We were glad to have the extra space of the recreation room, where also an office was set up that Pete was able to take over after his father died in 1955. This was accomplished because of his good mind, determination to take over the business through use of a two-way radio, trips in a van equipped with hand controls, lift and ramp, being in his wheelchair. I had started later to work at the probate court for James Rutledge as a juvenile officer, and later when Jim retired for Howard Gaylor until his retirement in, I don't remember, should be in that book,
Okay.
as juvenile worker, and approved by the state, paid by the state. Elsie Brunt had been the worker but wanted to retire, and she recommended me to Jim as I'd been helping neighbors and various families out our way, and she felt and could fit in pretty, and she felt I could fit in pretty well, though I had no formal training yet. I could type, and I had a fair vocabulary and understanding of what was expected of parents, children, schools, and so forth. I loved the challenge and was approved by the state inspector. Also, I attended meetings and seminars frequently, have hiring a nurse at the times for care of Pete. I'd been interested in art for some time, having done some portrait drawings, and I felt when chances to get some classes and more experience, I could join in with some friends who were also wanting to explore more art and painting. So the Pen and Palette Club was formed. We met in the new high school outside town, but we put on shows over on the river banks by the bridge through the town of Roscommon for many years, and finally set up in front and back of the old school in town, also back of the courthouse for part of July. Many of us went away for the winters in later years, and after Pete died in '81, I started going to California, where 3 of my girls lived. Also, one for the winters. I should have said there. Oh yeah, I did. Also, Barbara married a California young man who was going into dental school And they ended up with his practice back in Kalispell, Montana. I spent winters out west and summers back in Roscommon. And after selling our home in Leggville, where I'd lived for most of my married life, and my children attended school in Roscommon, graduating and most going on to further education for a short time or service at that time. There was only one that went clear through and got her
Bachelor's?
no, she got what is the next one called?
Master's.
Master's. Yeah, she got her master's after graduating from
Central?
Central, yeah. And then she went down to the Detroit area.
Wayne State?
Wayne State, yeah. And it was an interesting, exciting, and gratifying life with both good days and bad, from which we did learn and gave many prayers of thanksgiving. Today we are praying to the good Lord for Barbara's life to be brought into remission with this multiple myeloma she's fighting down at Little Rock, Arkansas Treatment Center with her